Hey, hi folks, I'm Mike Yannessa.
Hey, we're excited about a new show on PCTV Network called Car Stories. Our show's about old car stories, new car stories, and local automobile history. Join us live every Wednesday on the PCTV Network. Hey, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Remember, it's live on PCTV. Hi, I'm Mike Yannessa. Welcome to another episode of Car Stories. It's 2015. Happy New Year. If you saw our Christmas display here in the showroom, we had a real nice one this year, and we just changed it up again, and the theme is fins. Fins are in again at Wheels of Motion. Behind me here is a 1957 DeSoto two-door hardtop Fire Dome, 36,000 original miles. And I bought it a few months ago, and I've been picking at it, trying to make it better. And it's got the snow tires on the back. They're Chanute snow tires with no hubcaps, just like it would have been back in the 50s and 60s. So 1957 DeSoto. And this one you might have saw before. It's a 1959 Impala. It was bought here brand new in 1959 when it was Kaiser Chevrolet. And this is an all-original car, 34,000 miles. It has original paint, 283 Turbo Glide. Next month in Center City, Philadelphia is the AACA National Convention. That's the Antique Automobile Club of America. It's at the Center City Sheraton Hotel. This car is going to be there as part of the display, and I can't wait to get down there and get it set up. So 1959 Impala, cameo coral, very unusual color, and just a really unrestored original car. So if you get a chance, stop by Wheels of Motion at 525 East High Street, and you can check out these cars. And next month, we're going to have two more of a different kind in the showroom. So tonight, we're going to do a story, car stories, and our guest is Jim Fitch. And Jim has a lot to talk about of his racing days and his gas station back in the day. So stay tuned for Jim Fitch on Car Stories. Okay, so here we are with Jim Fitch. Jim, tell us about the service station that you started way back when.
Well, our business was built. My father had Fitch Machine Company. He operated in Canavertown, and he decided in the early 60s that he wanted to expand his business and provide an opportunity for my brothers and I to operate our businesses at the same time. So in 1963, we built the building which exists now on Pottstown Pike, just north of Route 23, on Route 100.
Okay.
And my brother Bill operated Fitch Electronics out of the one side of the building. My brother Bob and I operated Fitch Brothers Incorporated on the three-bay garage in the front, and my father operated Fitch Machine Company in the rear.
Wow.
So we had three family businesses operating out of one facility at the time.
Wow, that's neat.
I've been there 50 years. I'm starting my 51st year right now, but I am ready to retire. So if someone wants to buy a nice property, contact me.
Right. Nice repair garage, right?
Been there, still operating to the point I can. My body is slowly wearing out, so it's time to slow down a bit, I believe.
Yeah, but you had a lot of racing, a lot of cars back in the day.
We did. Pottstown was just the hub for this area of street machine. Well, you didn't have street machines. You had factory muscle cars.
Right.
You had a few street rods, but mostly factory muscle cars.
Yep.
GTOs, Grand Sports, Mach 1 Mustangs, you name it. Hemi cars, they abounded in Pottstown.
Yeah.
The run from the treat to Geno's
on
the weekends was a steady stream of cars. Nobody went much to the east end of town. Geno's was the turnaround.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that. I was a passenger at that time. I wasn't driving yet, but Geno's was the place to be. That was a chicken place here in the middle of town that closed up many years ago, and later I guess it was Kentucky Fried Chicken.
It was, and then From Electric.
And then now it's From Electric.
Yeah, it's in there now, the same building. Exactly.
Unbelievable. So one of the cars Jim had, it was a 62 Corvette, and we have a picture of it behind us here. And I got a good story with this. When I first opened my gas station, a gentleman brought me this car for inspection and service work, And I checked it out and I put it up on the lift. And I believe it said Jim Fitch or Fitch.
It said Jim Fitch
Fitch
on it.
written on the frame. And the thing behind it was, if the car ever got stolen, Jim would know that this was his car.
It was my poor man's low jack.
Yeah. So, you know, and I know the customer. I've talked to him over the years for the past 30 years. And interesting story, I was at the Mecum auction in Harrisburg, and I wound up talking to a guy side of me, and he, in conversation, said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Pottstown," and he kind of laughed and said he was from Spring City, and he's there to buy a classic car. He didn't buy one. And he said, "But if I buy a classic car, I'm going to look you up." So this summer, he bought a classic car, a 57 T-Bird. He needed some service work done, and he brought it up here, and we fixed it. And he said to me, "I'm looking for, I believe it was King Street, I'm not sure, but wherever it was." And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "My original 62 Corvette is here in Pottstown. I want to go to see if the guy is going to sell it." And by coincidence, I mentioned the name of the guy that currently owns it, and he said, "Yeah, that's the guy." So this guy bought it new. He sold it to Jim in the 60s, and then it wound up here in Pottstown for the past 30 years,
Yeah,
maybe?
a long time. I sold the car when I got out of the service in '69 just because I didn't have a garage. 23,000 original mile, 1962 Honduras.
Yep, look
Corvette,
at that baby.
340 horse, 456 posi, two tops. I sold the car with 23,000 original miles for $2,350.
Oh my
Not
goodness.
23,000, $2,350.
And you raced it
Not
periodically?
that, not
you
that
didn't
car.
race
That car
one.
never made
That
that
was your
drag
street
strip.
ride.
That was my
street hot rod.
practice ride.
Right. But so talk about a car story, right? Just because I happened to sit beside this guy and talk to him, and it led to that conversation, and here he is in Pottstown looking for his original 62 Corvette, which is that car that Jim had. You bought it from him, right?
I bought it right out of high school in 1965.
From the original owner.
I bought Tom Batchelor of Batchelor's Greenhouses
yeah.
in Snowdenville, was the second owner.
Oh, he bought it from the original.
I was the third owner. He bought it from the original owner.
Wow,
Yes.
isn't that something?
Yeah.
See, what a car story. 62 Corvette. Jim's got a bunch of good pictures here, so let's see what he's got. What did he bring us tonight?
That was my original 55 Chevy. Originally, I started to build a 41 Ford Coupe that I put a small block Chevy in when I was 15 years old. My first engine rebuild was a 265 that I did at 15. I put it in the 41 Ford, but then I found this 55 Chevy.
Oh, yeah.
Pulled the motor out of that, put it in the 55. Then, when I was a junior in high school, I built a 60 over 283.
Wow.
It had a Mickey Thompson cross ram on it with dual AFBs. I had a 4-speed in the car, which was really rare back in that day, with a 411 posi, and it was the fastest car at O&J in the day.
What's this day? Where are we at? Mid-60s?
64.
64.
64. In my junior year, I put that car
Junior year in
together.
high school, and that was your car?
Yeah.
Painted like that and everything?
Yeah, that's another interesting story where the car, I had it nosed and decked and painted at Dodder's Auto Body in South Pottstown.
Oh, yeah.
In 1964 for $40
Can you imagine?
back in the day.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
But Jerry told me that he used to do repaints for Kate's Ford. When people would see an existing car on the lot, they would just like a color change, door jams and all, he would do for $39.
Can you imagine? I mean, now today...
You can't buy the sandpaper
sandpaper, yeah.
for $39.
Wow, what a neat car.
Yeah.
55 Chevy, two-door sedan.
Bel Air.
Bel Air.
You know, rolled and pleat interior. Friedman Brothers in Pottstown upholstered
Oh,
it
yeah.
back in the day when
Yeah.
they did upholstery work.
Yep. Freeman Brothers was up in Stowe, right?
Yes, yep.
Where, oh boy, I don't know where it is now, but
The
it's
speed shop where he was
yeah,
in there for a
right,
while.
or
And
Hudson.
R&R Transmission.
R&R
That's who's in
Transmission.
there
That
now.
was
Yep.
Freeman Brothers
That
back
was
in the
Freeman
day.
Brothers.
And later on, they moved down closer to Pottstown
Yes.
where Renall is.
Yes, and that's
Yeah.
another example of Kragers with white walls.
Kragers with white
Which was
walls.
vogue. in the
Yes,
day.
yes. That's really cool. What else you got here, Jim?
That is the first tow truck we had at the shop.
Oh, my goodness.
That was a 1937 Chevy that was bought off of Art Kessler's garage in Canowertown when he went out of business. The car had 12,000 original miles on it when we bought it.
Oh, my goodness.
Originally, the doors in the back opened up and it had a hand crank Holmes crane on it. And we actually did tow jobs with that until we converted it to a V8 engine with a power winch and changed the boom on the back. And we used that truck until 1972 when we bought a brand new truck and built a boom and body on that.
Wow.
For
and
the
what,
business.
And what happened to that? Just sold it?
This car was sold to Otto Delabertis when he had a repair shop in Stowe, and then he sold it to Carol Hines in Douglasville.
Oh, no
Which
kidding.
I'm sure the truck is still sitting in his shop at this
Somewhere.
day. Yeah.
Yep. 37 Chevy. Oh boy, look at that.
That is a picture from back in the day. That is, I believe, 1966. That was my brother Gene's short bed Chevy Fleet Side that we had a friend who bought one of the first 396s at Reedman's in 1965.
Okay.
And he was on the road doing electrical work, couldn't stand the gas mileage with a 396. So he said if we would change it, he would give my brother the 396 and the 4-speed out of the 65 Impala, and we put the 283 and 3-speed in.
What a
his
deal!
Chevy. What a fun truck to drive.
yeah.
That was a fun truck to drive.
And look at the price of gas.
Yeah, the price of
29
gas.
cents.
Yep.
Wow.
Up in the background is my uncle's 57 Ford, my brother's 57 Chevy, and my 55 over here.
Oh my goodness, that looks neat. Humble, happy motoring.
Yes.
Esso. Building looks pretty much the same.
Hasn't changed to
Yeah.
any degree. It really hasn't.
Oh, how about that one?
That's my wife's, my bride, sweetheart. That is my bride's 62 Corvette. That also is pretty much, I duplicated what I had back in the day.
Right.
The car was originally fawn beige, and it was a non-numbers matching car when I bought it. It had a 350. I made it as correct as I could.
And you still have that one?
I still have this car.
Nice.
We still have this car.
62.
It's a 340 horse, 4-speed, 411 posi.
Red
two tops.
interior, black interior?
Black interior,
Black interior.
black nut, you know, but it's a very nice driver.
Very pretty.
Very nice driver.
Yep. All right. What else we got?
That is a project I am working on right now. I found this little car about 3 years ago in Amityville at a guy that sells used mower parts. It was in the back of his shed. I felt like I was one of the pickers crew when I found it, climbing over.
Yeah.
But there it was, the car, the history that I've gathered on it. Excuse me, the car was built in the 1930s for his 2 boys. It was originally powered by a 1.5 horsepower crank start Lawson washing machine engine. When I bought it, it has an 8 horsepower Kohler electric start engine in it, which is, I'm leaving in it just because it's electric start.
Yeah.
Has a Model T front axle. The front and rear suspensions are seat springs off of a buggy.
Oh my, wow.
Has a friction drive, 2 speeds forward, 1 in reverse, working horn, working cowl fuel tank with a gauge, headlights, taillights, stoplight, and horn. Under my reconstruction, I'm changing it a bit and making it look a bit like a speedster. I put 20-inch spoke wheels on it. I found a very small English windshield to put on it that fits the car.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm bringing the pipe up the left side of it, much like an old speedster would
Yeah,
be.
an old Indy
but
car or
that's
something, yeah.
It's an incredible amount of sheet metal work this gentleman did back in the day with what was available. It's
Wow.
just an
Talk about
interest-
one of a kind.
It
right?
is certainly one of a
Yeah,
kind.
find another one of them.
I caught a lot of grief from my sweetheart when I brought that home.
What are you doing with that thing, right? That
Exactly.
is cool. I remember you telling me about
Yeah,
that at
that's it.
Carlisle
So
or somewhere,
I'm in the
but
process of doing that right
there
now.
it is. Cool. All right. What else we got?
That is our race car.
That's the one I remember.
The U.S. mail wagon from back in the day. The name, my brother Bill, who was in the electronics business, he was a real fan of Elvis, and U.S. Mail was one of Elvis's.
Oh,
So we called it the U.S. mail wagon. Actually, I bought the car when I was a senior in high school. Used to spend my time in study halls figuring out bore stroke configurations as far as what cubic inch would be.
Wow.
The car was 288 cubic inches.
57 150?
57 Handyman Special.
Oh, Handyman Special.
Cheapest wagon General Motors made. It only had 1 sun visor.
Right.
It was
right.
so cheap.
Yep.
But the car had a great body on it.
Look at the wheels. Oh,
Yeah.
man, it looks great.
The rear wheels I made special. You were only allowed 7-inch tires in a modified production car.
Mm-hmm.
So you needed to get the car to launch. Took a set, it had a 57 Olds rear in it. Took and modified a set of wheels to where they were only 4 inches wide. Now we could run about 13 pounds of air pressure in it. Now the car only ran 1292, 1294 in the quarter, 104, 5 mile an hour. If you'd gone much faster, that the car would have gotten squirrely. But the car launched incredibly with those narrow wheels. But 288 cubic inch, I slick shifted a 4-speed transmission, where you cut off every other tooth and
Yep.
synchronize it.
Yep.
There were no Super T10s, there were no Richmonds back in the day.
No.
You just
Did you
improvised.
blow? Did you blow trannies?
Never blew
Never
one
blew
because
one?
never blew it with 7-inch tires. It
Yeah.
didn't modify low gear. Left
Right.
that alone, for the
Wow.
launch. But launched a car at 8,700, shifted it at 8,700.
Oh my goodness.
You know,
Wow.
back then, the car worked very well. I was going to take the car to Indianapolis in 1967. The record was held by a Jay Kalmus. He had a 9-passenger Bel Air wagon in New York at 1292, but he could run 12.7s on his own 1292 record. So I was only 19 at the time. I had to go through all kinds of notary work to be able to run at a national event because at the day I was considered a minor at 19.
Oh.
So I went through all the paperwork and decided at the last minute we didn't take the car to Indy. Unfortunately, I should have taken the car. A 1334 won the class, and that guy made it through 4 rounds of straight eliminator.
Oh,
so
man.
it was a bad move not to take the car that year.
Wow.
But it was a fun car to drive.
It is. That is a beautiful. I think we got some more of that one.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a nice picture of the car running the Rat's Nest.
Oh, the Rat's Nest.
Another local, very famous car.
54 Corvette.
Yeah.
It's still here in Pottstown. Yep.
And that car, there was local rivalries.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Snake and Mongoose had their national rivalries. You had the Rat's Nest and Arsenic, a car which ran out of George Mentzer's car out of S&W Speed Shop.
Right.
Which both ran B-modified production at the time, and both were very, very competitive.
And Arsenic was what type of car?
60 Corvette.
60 Corvette.
Yep, a yellow, pale yellow 60 Corvette.
I remember the name, but I'm not familiar with the car.
That car actually, supposedly John Ruckles has that for sale right now.
Oh,
that car is for sale.
In another form, it's not a race car.
Not a race car.
Right.
I think it's just a roller at this point.
Wow.
But it's around.
Wow. Yeah, and this one Tim Haynes owns today.
Yes, he does.
The Rat's Nest, very locally famous 54
Very
Corvette.
much so.
Right.
That is a picture of myself and Larry Shaner, who has been on Mike's show before. Probably.
That's you?
We could be called the Geek Squad today, But,
remember, if you watched past episodes of Car Stories, we did a car story on the Little Brothers Car Club, and we had pictures of Larry Shaner, and he was on with Larry Lilly and some of the old members.
And Lenny Cox.
Lenny Cox, yeah. So, yeah, that's him back in the day with the 57 wagon. I guess Maple Grove?
Yeah, that was Maple Grove.
Yep, Maple Grove Raceway,
that was
which opened in, what, 62? So
It
you
did.
were right there at the beginning.
Yeah, we started racing in 66.
Yep. Wow. It's funny. It's funny to see these pictures. It brings back a lot of memories. Now, what's that?
That is our old race car today. I found it.
The green one?
The green one.
Wow.
It is owned by the Gerhardt brothers, who also own the original Moose, which is now a super gas car.
Which original Moose would that be?
The yellow one.
The yellow 30,
The yellow 38.
38 Chevy.
Yep.
Yep.
The
Moose crew here from town.
They own that car.
Wow.
When I found out who owned it, he gave me that picture. I haven't seen the car personally, but that is it. And they spent $30,000 to put a Pro Mod chassis under the car. I hope someday I can find the car and buy it back. But
oh my,
naturally, that's not going to happen. But
hopefully it's a little farther along.
He said to me, that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
He said to me, what did the car weigh when you raced it? I said it weighed 3,860 pounds. It was very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
He said, what do you think it weighs now? He said, without the engine and transmission, it weighs 1,700 pounds. Yeah,
wow.
And it's about this high.
Yeah.
But you look at the difference in configuration in race cars of the day.
Yep.
Back to this. Obviously a different class.
Big tub tires.
Yes.
Everything's modified.
That is a picture of a B-Gas Anglia. Tom Batchelor, who owned my original Corvette, and Charlie Dickinson, who owns D&D.
Oh, okay.
In Pottstown.
And Maple Grove again.
B-Gas Anglia, which was just a beautiful little car.
Oh,
it really was. But hard car to shift. It was one of those cars that didn't have a complete frame done under it, and I think the car twisted so much, it was a very, very hard car to shift back in the day. Misgears were kind of common. Yeah.
And look at the old billboards. There's what would be Jack Leary's Speed Shop later on in the day, and the old Stout Auto Sales. They're still in business up in Reading.
That's probably, Strunky had an altered car back in the day.
Neat. Maple Grove doesn't look like that anymore.
No, it does not. That is Skip Bechtel's D Sports Corvette.
Oh, I know Skip.
Skip was a great competitor, national record-holding car out of Reading. The only reason I bought that picture of that car, I only won Street Eliminator one time at Maple Grove. Mm-hmm. We were right up against the curfew at Maple Grove, and Skip had a several-week winning streak at Maple Grove. Mm-hmm. And I knew in order to beat him, I had to cut an incredible light. He had to give me the handicap. but I had to cut an incredible light. I must have cleaned the tires off a dozen times to get them hot.
Right.
I cut a great light, Skip red lighted, and I still beat him at the bottom end. The crowd went crazy that night. I wish I had that National Dragster article. But that's the one. Skip was a terrific competitor.
And what year are we at now? Where's this?
That was either 60. I was probably 67.
67.
Yeah.
And again, the old signs are cool.
Yep.
Sinistris, Amico, right?
And that's who tuned Skip's car.
Yep, I know
Roger
that.
tuned Skip's car.
Roger Sinistri.
That's Teddy Slayball's Willie's.
Yeah, we had him on before. Yep,
Yeah.
that's another local racer right here from town. Teddy Jr. have a machine shop out on Willer Street.
Yep.
And that's the
He
the
used
original
to work at
Willie's.
Models back in the day,
Yep.
way back in the day. And he did most of our automotive machine work back in the day.
My uncle Albert worked at Noddles, and he taught Teddy. You know, he told me that before. He said, you know, I remember your uncle very well. That he worked at Noddles.
Teddy was a very competitive racer.
Yep. 40 Willies?
Yes, I think it was. I don't think it was a 40.
There's another picture of the rat's nest. The rat's nest went through different phases. It was blue,
yeah,
it was
different
black,
color.
and there's
and
one
that
there.
is the way I actually remember it, right
Wow.
there. That is the way very, very competitive car. On that particular picture, it has C modified on the windshield. When we were racing, it was a B modified production car at that time.
Okay, explain that to me.
Modified production
viewers.
Modified production cars were much like gas cars. Gas cars were allowed to have fuel injection, 10% engine setback, and any size tire you could put under the car. A modified production car was basically no limit on engine modifications, but it had to be carbureted, no engine setback, and a maximum of 7-inch tires, and theoretically, they had to be able to be driven back the return road where a gas car could be towed.
Could be rope towed. Right.
Maple Grove never enforced that rule. Because of that rule, this is something we made back in the day. My brother Gene was a machinist. This pulley is slightly smaller and it has a very, very deep groove in it. Now, I shifted our car at 8,700 RPM.
So it's hard to keep belts on.
Hard to keep belts on, and then you weren't allowed to get out at the bottom and put it back on to drive back the return road.
Oh.
So you had a choice to either let it set, lose the round by not being able to drive it back, or
run it
do
hot.
something, or run it hot and ruin the motor. So we developed and most of the guys at S&W at the time ran this pulley. We didn't have the option of looking up in jegs to buy stuff like that. We had to build what we needed. But this slowed upper end RPM down by 10%. So instead of 8,700, it's running slightly over 775, whatever the case may be, but kept the belts on.
Kept the belt on, because there's always that magic RPM where the belt went, ching. So if you could keep it below that.
Back in the day, there was no such thing as things like tunnel ram manifolds, which everybody takes for granted today. Ralph Ridgway had a C-modified production 55 Chevy. He was from Connecticut back in the day. He was a national record holder. He took an early Corvette fuel injection plenum, cut the top off of it, and welded a plate on time, and he created the very first tunnel ram. As I recall, he actually went to work for Edelbrock after that. But the car was the record holder, and it just worked.
And when was this now? Give me a
same time period, 66, 67.
Mid-60s.
He had the very first tunnel ram.
Huh,
but,
I did not know that.
Back in the day, guys were terrific innovators.
Yeah. Well, you said it there, even with street rods and stuff. All that stuff was handmade. Today, you just open up the catalog and give them your credit card.
Exactly.
Back then, it was like either you made it or you had someone make it, or, you know, it was off of another vehicle.
Totally fabricated.
Yep. What's this here now?
That's Harrison Junior Reinford's original Moose.
Wow.
Now, I wish I had a picture of this. I only ever raced Paul Reinford one time, and it was in time trials. Anybody that ever remembers the Moose, they had about a 60-pound flywheel on that car, where they would sit on the starting line and just go and pick up RPM and then drop the hammer.
Okay.
One time in Saturday time trials, I got next to Junior with our car, and I thought, I just want to see if I can get him out of the gate with our 7-inch tire car.
Yeah.
I cut a really good light, got him out of the gate by about half a car, and I looked at him, my left eye, he was in the left lane. He had the Moose stood about 4 feet in the air, and I would have loved to have had that on
shot
picture back in the day.
Yeah, and that's a really neat car.
One thing we did back in the day, my brother Bill being in the electronics business, he had gotten us there were no such thing as cassettes or anything back then, a small 3-inch reel-to-reel tape recorder. And I would set it on the seat in the car, turn it on when I was coming down through the build-up area, and we'd leave it on, throw a run. That way you could listen and see if the car flattened out anywhere at different shift
Right,
points.
or if it missed, or if you missed a gear, or yeah.
Ironically, for one of the home shows, he built a huge set of speakers that the decibels controlled a light show in these speakers for Bell Telephone for the Pottstown Home Show. So we set those outside the shop one day. He had these two 4x8 speakers, and we hooked the race car reel to, it sounded like Maple Grove in Bucktown.
Wow, that's really cool.
Back in the day, we had no 60-foot times. We had no reaction times.
Right.
You used to listen to the guys that were racers say, oh, I've never red lighted. Well, then you've never cut a good light, because the only way you could tell if you were cutting a good light, you have to red light every now and then.
It's a real close line there between red and green, and you got to find that spot. So.
And basically back then, the guys who ran in the street eliminator classes, altered, sports, modified sports, gas, modified production, everybody used 4-speed transmissions. You know, nobody used an automatic because the 4-speed cars were naturally just a bit faster.
Yeah.
But that seems to be a thing days going by. There aren't many operators left.
No.
I love to listen to the guys from 422 Motorsports Run, because they have several guys that still know how to operate a car. Old school boys.
Yep.
Yeah, they're fun to watch.
Well, Jim, it's been great. Already we're out of time. You know, we could do some more pictures and sit here all night, but we're limited.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming and sharing a lot of good stories about drag racing when it was at the beginning of it. And if you ever saw Car Stories before, I hope you did. If you don't get Comcast, remember you can view it on the internet. Tell your friends, thepctvnetwork.com. You can watch this show and past episodes. So we have viewers in Florida. We have viewers all over the place that watch Car Stories on the internet. So check it out. I told you that story real quick, that John Connick called me from Florida. They all watch it down there.
Yes,
when it's
that's
on.
so nice.
And I'm like, you what? He says, the neatest thing is it's about our hometown.
Right. Norm Bowman.
Bowman. That's how the Little Brothers thing came, Norman Bowman. And it's about Pottstown. It's about local history. If you have anybody you think would be good on Car Stories, please tell them to give me a call. And there's plenty of people in town that raced and had cars, or you just had a story to tell about your father's car, your brother's car. Give me a call here at Wheels in Motion at 525 East High Street, 610-327-1945. Thank you for tuning in tonight to another episode of Car Stories. And we got a lot of good guests, and we're going to do a lot of mobile shows this year in 2015. So stay tuned every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock or on the internet at any time you can. So, Jim, thank you again for coming.
Thank you.